Welcome to SandCity Sports. I am your host, the Cape Cod Kid, artist formerly known as Andre King, and we are back again to bring you all the sports and current events news stories that you need to know. Your boy is in the studio, solo for dolo. I guess that works. Today, my man Drew Pops has left the motherland and is overseas in Paris for the culture, for the scenery, for the Women's World Cup, and a couple other things, to be the world traveler that he is. So it's just me today, but nonetheless, we got a lot to get to, so we're going to jump right in. Your boy Kyrie, he's ghosting. Can't be found. Celtics don't know where to locate this man. And, folks in Boston seem to be a little bit perplexed, but Cape Cod Kid told you guys a long time ago, Kyrie's not that dude. He's not that guy to lead a team, lead an organization, lead a city, or any of those three together. So I'm not surprised that Kyrie has kind of given the Celtics the cold shoulder. I didn't anticipate him re-signing in free agency to begin with. And this is, for all the Celtics fans, for all the people who believe that you have to have stars and, an organization must do everything in their power to convince these star players to stay because, oh my goodness, if a number one overall draft pick or a guy who happens to be have been selected to an all-star team at one point in time leaves your organization, then you're going to be destitute for years and years and years to come. This is, one way of thinking that I completely reject. Okay, so since the beginning, since Kyrie started to get into his feelings during this season, we started off, going to resign in Boston. I want to be here. And then, typical Kyrie, if you followed his career, when things, start to get tough, when hard times arrive, his allegiances and his dedication tend to be difficult to locate. And so as soon as that arose, and, in this season it was rather early, and there were question marks surrounding the team, I jumped off the Kyrie bandwagon, and the more and more things became uncertain here in Beantown, the more and more I was ready to get him gone. Okay, and at this point in time, the season's over. We know the results: a good first round sweep of the Pacers, a good start against the Milwaukee Bucks, and then once again, difficulties arose, and the leadership was nowhere to be found. In fact, his leadership was directed in the absolute wrong direction in games 4 and 5. Horrendous field goal percentage, many turnovers, atrocious body language, and a gentleman's sweep, and the Celtics were going home. So, Kyrie, ghosting at the moment, we shouldn't be surprised, and frankly, Celtics fans, get him out of here. Danny Ainge's lone responsibility is to sign him so that you can access that $20 to $30 million in cap space. And, if he wants to be in Brooklyn, if he wants to be with Jay-Z and Rock Nation, let him go. If he wants to go to the Knicks, the Lakers, less of a possibility. He can get there. Don't think we need him, and not really surprised that is the narrative today, that he is ghosting. Continuing with the Celtics, Al Horford, on a different note, on the other side of the spectrum, has decided to opt out of his contract in order to give the Celtics more flexibility, in free agency, and, take care of their young guys and build for the future. So you have basically a tale of two cities in a number of regards. Now, Al Horford's a little bit longer in the tooth, moving towards the tail end of his career. Nonetheless, has his dedication ever been in question? Have you ever wondered about his heart and his commitment to winning throughout his career, going back to his time at Florida with those 2 national championships? Answer is absolutely not. Okay? And so somebody who has no flash or considerably less flash, dash, je ne sais quoi, if you will, in Al Horford, but what are his actions indicating? Okay? Team first, willing to sacrifice, committed to winning. That's something that we should be able to get around and to support. And I'm very excited about that. So Kyrie is saying nothing, and Al Horford is saying, listen, Danny, I'm willing to sign a team-friendly extension so that you can take care of these other guys, so that we can build something in Boston that's competitive, that's blue-collar, and that we hope is championship worthy. On that note, I want to switch it over. We got to do a little bit of NBA Finals review. Series is clearly over. We know the results. The Toronto Raptors securing their first championship in team history. First championship for Canada since, I believe, the early 90s when Joe Carter was swinging the lumber for the Toronto Blue Jays, knocking out the Golden State Warriors in 6 games to win the NBA championship. And Toronto, NBA champions. Who picked them in the beginning of the season? Some people might have thought they could get to the finals. Very few people believed that they were going to beat Golden State. Obviously, we didn't know that Durant was going to be injured along with other key players for the Warriors. But to use this as an example, a little case study, Kawhi Leonard now, everyone thinks that he is the best player on the planet, all world, singing his praises. What a difference a year makes. Last year, people questioning his heart, his endurance, his love for the game, his ability to lead, and less than one trip around the sun later, and the narrative is completely switched. But my point about Toronto is you have one bona fide star, Kyle Lowry. Let's be honest, folks, you didn't believe he was a star before this playoffs began. Even though he has been selected to, I believe it is 5 all-star teams in the Eastern Conference. You remember those 2 sweeps to the Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA playoffs. So I don't want to hear anybody all of a sudden talking about, that the Toronto Raptors are this star-studded team, with 2 bona fide stars, and, throw Marc Gasol in there, even though, again, he's at the tail end of his career, not what he was, a couple years ago, not their Defensive Player of the Year, all-star caliber player, and let's remember he came in mid-season. Spicy P, most improved player, but he's not another star that you could bank on from the beginning. My point is, with the Toronto Raptors, they are a team. I believe they had 6 players average double figures over the course of the finals, and again, players like Fred VanVleet, who were undrafted. Pascal Siakam, who very few people knew of before this finals run. Danny Green, obviously won the championships with the Spurs, but again, reserve, support player, never been an all-star. And, for the majority of 6 games, they smacked the Golden State Warriors. Now, we're going to get into why that is the case. Obviously, there's a number, there's one huge elephant in the room, and along with that, a couple rhinoceros, some buffalo, some polar bears. There's some large animals in this, in terms of how the victory actually took place. I'm not going to sit up here, to borrow a quick line from Stephen A. Smith. He likes to say that a lot. Okay, we're not going to say or imagine that if the Golden State Warriors had been completely healthy, that this series would have ended in 6 games. Obviously, if that team is 100% healthy, the series is going 7, and the Raptors would in no way, shape, or form, be the favorite. In no way, shape, or form would the Raptors have been up 3-1 and up 7-8 points. I forget what the exact figure was. With just about 3 minutes to go in Game 5 at home. looking like, they're going to win the championship there. Had Kevin Durant been healthy this entire series, we know that would have been a different story. Okay, but the point is, he wasn't healthy for the majority of the series, and the Golden State Warriors were still the favorites going in. So, how did the Raptors, win the series and win the majority of each and every game? And what the heck does this have to do with the Celtics? Where is this guy going? What does this have to do with the Celtics? And the reason the Toronto Raptors are the NBA champions is because they are a team, capital T. And in retrospect, it's easy to say that, but it's just a fact. This Golden State Warriors team that won 6 straight games after Kevin Durant's initial calf injury, and we're going to get to that, had nothing really for the Raptors. They never won a game by double digits, and the Raptors were in control of the majority of the series. All right, this is a team that came in as the concerted underdog for the Warriors without Kevin Durant. Reason being is because, these guys, old-fashioned, if you want to call it that, show up to work, don't have these huge, oversized egos, are considerate and understanding of their teammates, recognize the overarching realities in professional sports in terms of, what you can expect to get in terms of salary, in terms of treatment, while at the same time trying to compete for a championship. Quick segue to, a team in Philadelphia where you have their supposedly all-world player, Joel Embiid, calling his coach at 6 o'clock in the morning to tell him he doesn't think he can play that night. And he's just going to have to make do. Do you see or have you heard about those type of instances on the Toronto Raptors? Now, again, when you're winning all of these things that happen within the course of life tend to get swept under the rug. So they're not perfect, just like the Golden State Warriors are not perfect. And usually we get the real story when the chips are down. Because that's not what I'm saying about the Toronto Raptors, that they're somehow, just because they've, recently been crowned, the kings of the NBA, this model, of perfection or, whatever. My point is, more often than not, their players evidence these attributes that are both admirable and go hand in hand with winning. The type of characteristics that Al Horford displayed today in a noteworthy news day for the Boston Celtics, saying he's willing to work with the team in terms of his contract so that they can build a contender rather than allegedly their best player being nowhere to be found. We all like to quote, highlight, remember the New England Patriots in terms of do your job, or the championships, the winning, the success, the dynasty. But usually in paragraph 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8, do we remember or mention that Tom Brady has been taking hometown discounts his entire career. And that's the backdrop for the dynasty. Okay? Jeff Van Gundy, coach and an analyst who very fond of, going back to his days in New York and the good work that he did in Houston, and now for ESPN. But one of his lines is, the most important relationship on any team is between the coach and the best player. If your best player is coachable, if your best player has a team-first mentality, both on the field and off the field, the team's probably going to be successful. If your best player is known to be ghosting, I don't know how anybody can have confidence in that team winning much of anything, outside of individual accolades and, some nice YouTube highlight reels. But in terms of overall success, for me at least, not going to happen. So Kyrie ghosting, as far as I'm concerned, that situation in Titletown can remain ad infinitum. If he's never seen again in Boston, outside of the 4 times he visits, if he stays in the Eastern Conference, or 2 times, if he goes to the Western Conference, if that's the only time that he's seen around here, then I will be quite pleased. Obviously we got a notable story that took place in our sports community, off the field and outside of this country. And clearly I'm talking about the David Ortiz shooting that took place on June 9th in the Dominican Republic. And first and foremost, we, everyone is very pleased that today David's wife Tiffany reported that his condition has been upgraded to good. Okay? He was stabilized shortly after the shooting. He received surgery in the Dominican Republic, in which they did an outstanding job. That needs to be noted. We're going to note a couple other things about how this entire incident was handled in the Dominican Republic. He was flown back to Boston via the Boston Red Sox private jet to Mass General Hospital, one of the best hospitals in the world, where he received further treatment. And today, great to hear that it's been reported that he's in good condition. So that's the number one point. First, foremost, beginning end, that David Ortiz is going to pull through this terrible incident and still be able to be the great individual that he is. Now, in looking at this incident, it just explodes in a myriad of directions. You saw the footage, graphic. David Ortiz sitting at a restaurant, Dominican Republic, talking to a friend. Individual creeps up behind him. David Ortiz, absolutely oblivious, and shoots him in the back, lower abdomen area. Bullet goes through his body, exits near his stomach, hits his friend who was sitting next to him in the leg, and then all pandemonium breaks out. Story goes viral immediately. We don't, know what's going on. They appear to have an individual in custody who's been stomped and beaten, it appears, within a couple inches of his life. And, speculation is running rampant. Okay, we're going to get into all that, but flashing forward to the present and tacking on, a point that I mentioned before, there's been some speculation and conjecture that the Dominican Republic did not necessarily have the resources to handle this incident in a number of capacities. Okay, we talked about the surgery that David Ortiz received in the Dominican Republic. I'm proud to say, okay, even though I'm, not from the Dominican Republic, okay, but this is a notable part of the storyline to me. The surgery that David Ortiz received in the Dominican Republic was adequate, okay, and well done. Flash forward to the present, picking up this story, the way that this case has been investigated has also been first rate, okay, because as you and I know, following the story today, they have named the mastermind behind this entire assassination attempt, although he has not been arrested. And they have arrested close to 10 people in connection with this incident and really hashed out, found evidence and detailed, why this took place. The way that this case has been handled by the authorities in the Dominican Republic has been stellar. And let's get into the specifics now. Okay, it appears that David Ortiz was having an affair with a woman who was connected to a notable figure in the Dominican Republic, who, based on this alleged contact with somebody that he was familiar with, developed this plot to have David Ortiz shot and possibly killed. The investigation has revealed that a day before the shooting took place, David Ortiz bought a $75,000, I believe, $75,000 or $85,000 Lexus for this particular female who was the point in contention, who was, again, the reason that there was this disagreement between David Ortiz and this other figure. So a day before the shooting, this luxury vehicle was purchased, and that appears to be the motive behind, or the point of contention that would connect David Ortiz, beloved baseball player and analyst here in the United States and the Dominican Republic, probably more so in the Dominican Republic, to this individual in that country, who is known to law enforcement. Okay, so and you have to give credit to the reporters on this story, and then I want to give credit to reporters, but I also want to give credit to people who handled this. We didn't want to throw David Ortiz under the bus. Nobody did, and I feel like that caution and that reticence to sensationalize this story from the start was a great thing. Back to the NBA landscape. We obviously have to talk about the mega deal that took place in terms of sending Anthony Davis to the LA Lakers. For me, I think it's hilarious that the day before this mega deal took place, Las Vegas decided to, seemingly out of the blue, make the Los Angeles Lakers the favorites to win the NBA championship. Which, again, for anybody, a team that didn't make the playoffs in one year is all of a sudden going to be the favorite to win the NBA champion the next year. Absolutely ludicrous. And then less than 24 hours later, we learned that Anthony Davis, a top 10, possibly top 5 player in the NBA, is going to join LeBron James in Tinseltown, and now it all seems to make sense. Laker Nation is up in arms, is galvanized, already planning the parade for the 2020 NBA season based on this acquisition. And Adam Silver and the NBA brass are thrilled that another NBA free agency has kicked off with an absolute, the adjectives are eluding me. This is just the perfect way for NBA free agency to kick off. You're going to get more eyes, more attention, if not the same as the NBA Finals, possibly exceeding, the NBA Finals, based on all of these possibilities that can be taking place. So, are the Lakers the favorites to win the NBA championship as constructed right now? Absolutely not. Complete and total hogwash. The Lakers have 2 of the top 10 players in the NBA and nobody else. Okay? We're talking about a team with a coach who is a huge question mark, an assistant coach at Jason Kidd, who's a huge question mark, and a roster that has in no way, shape, or form been built or had time to learn and grow from one another, learn and grow with one another, So to make the Lakers the favorites, or to say just because on paper, they have, these 2 superstars and a rising star in Kyle Kuzma, that they, It's sensational, but it's not very practical, in any way, shape, or form. The Lakers will be must-see TV to start with, but I'm very skeptical about how, based on how last year went, and the absolute soap opera that this team was, okay, and losing your head coach, losing a noteworthy executive in Magic Johnson, having all of this uncertainty, and now again, Anthony Davis, great player coming from the Chicago public schools tradition. Why do I bring that up? Because when Kevin Durant, another product of the Chicago public schools tradition, came to Boston in 2007, there was a lot of uncertainty. A lot of which because, harkening back to the Celtics only winning 15 games the year before. And how did that work out for them? Okay? So, when you put this type, and Anthony Davis is assuredly a Kevin Durant level talent on your roster, then it's going to be a night and day difference. And you're going to now be in that conversation of contending teams, okay? Nonetheless, for me at least, to automatically, crown them is somewhat rash, if you will, but, a bit risky, but it nonetheless could be right. In the same fashion that, Kevin Garnett came to Boston and changed the culture and turned them into a championship team overnight. Anthony Davis going to the Lakers could have that same impact. I just think they have a long, not necessarily, there's many other pieces in terms of their organization, in terms of creating, because organizations win championships rather than, just players, just coaches, just management. You need all three of those to be functioning at a high level, in my view, to be a championship team. And the Lakers have, on the player level, done an outstanding job in terms of putting themselves in the conversation, but in terms of their leadership vis-a-vis coaching, and in terms of their overall leadership as an organization, no, for me. Jury's still has even no chance of coming back anytime soon. But as things shift, those things could all fall into place. As was mentioned earlier, winning does change quite a few things, and the Lakers are going to do much more winning with Anthony Davis. Quick look into the studio. We're go for launch. We're going to keep on keeping on here. Now, looking at the West, and this is the same thing that I have to say in the East. We'll make that comparison momentarily. I think the Western Conference is wide open, and this is the underpinnings of making the Lakers, the quote-unquote favorites. Not necessarily. Again, the West, you have a number of good teams. The Denver Nuggets are a good team. Obviously not ready for prime time, losing to a Portland Trailblazers team who was less talented than them. Portland Trailblazers also battle-tested, have talent, have more continuity than some of these other talented teams, i.e. Denver, i.e. A team like Houston, which we'll get to. But in no way, shape, or form, are the Portland Trailblazers the overwhelming favorites to win anything next year. Obviously, the Houston Rockets have talent on paper, and we're going to get to some of the other things that are going on in that organization. San Antonio Spurs looking to get DeJounte Murray back. They'll be a force to be reckoned with. With the leadership that they have under Greg Popovich. Utah Jazz are always going to be a blue-collar, scrappy team. That's going to be a tough out. But I don't think anybody would, say that they're in the championship, contention, or they're championship level. The fact of the matter is the West is wide open, okay? And so a galvanized Lakers team led by LeBron James, looking to cement his legacy, and Anthony Davis looking to win that initial championship, could, in, any number of scenarios, okay, run the table in the West and get to the NBA Finals next year and take it home. Based on the fact primarily that the Golden State Warriors dynasty, for all intents and purposes, has come to an end. I think that is the overarching rationale in terms of why the Western Conference A and the NBA overall B are wide open next year. Is that the Golden State Warriors dynasty is coming to an end, and that's going to open up things for the Lakers and a lot of other teams. Now, back to Tinseltown is out there. Like to call Boston Titletown, even though we'll get to it, in a little bit. Why we have that name, but we don't win every championship. And people who say that the Celtics, have to have Kyrie and you need stars. Listen, not only is the Western Conference wide open, the Eastern Conference is wide open. Okay, Kawhi Leonard is going to the Clippers. I'm just gonna say it. He's going to the Clippers. Period. Now I could be wrong. But it also needs to be recognized that this man bought a $13.3 million mansion in San Diego during this last season. And, as I've mentioned, I don't think he intends to use this mansion as an Airbnb. I think the man wants to live there, and not just in the summer. Okay, so there's a good probability that Kawhi Leonard will be leaving Toronto. Okay, so take them off the overwhelming favorite list. Milwaukee Bucks, everyone returning. I think Chris Middleton will re-sign. But they were up 2-0 in the Eastern Conference Finals and lost 4 straight. Take them off the overwhelming favorite list in the Eastern Conference. Philadelphia 76ers, many reports have Jimmy Butler heading out of town. They have to re-sign Tobias Harris. And possibly your best overall player is an individual who calls his coach at 6 o'clock in the morning and tells him he may or may not play that evening. Take them off the list of overwhelming favorites in the Eastern Conference. Indiana Pacers, best player Victor Oladipo, returning from a. Now I'm not sure if it was an ACL or an Achilles. He's returning from a significant injury. Okay, it's going to take him some time to get back into form. Take them off the list as well. Celtics are right there, even though they were the 4 seed. You lose Kyrie, maybe bump down to the 5 seed, but Eastern Conference is wide open. Plenty of opportunity for the Celtics with the talent they have and everyone pulling in the right direction to make big noise. So that's one of my rebuttals to the Kyrie folks. And again, with this Anthony Davis deal in LA, the NBA next year, it hurts that Kevin Durant, will not be a part of it. But even if he did decide to go to the Clippers or the Knicks or the Nets, or re-sign with Golden State, with that injury, the league would have still been wide open. And I think that's a great thing for basketball and for the fans and for all parties involved. Okay, let me look at my list here, make sure I'm hitting things that we need to talk about. NBA draft is coming up in 2 days. A notable draft. There's a player, last name of Williamson, who you might have heard about. First thing that I take issue with going into this draft is the lack of enthusiasm related to the players top to bottom. These last 2 NBA drafts have been tremendous in terms of how these players have produced immediately. The Donovan Mitchells of the world, the De'Aaron Foxes of the world, the Luka Doncic's of the world, the Marvin Bagleys of the world, the Trae Youngs of the world, and the list goes on and on and on. And we're Yeah, I'm expecting Lonzo to bounce back, and we'll touch on that. So just in terms of the overall talent in these last drafts and how players have just come in and produced immediately, similar to how we see in the NFL, I've been rather surprised that folks are saying that this draft class is top heavy, and folks being down on players like Bol, on players like DeAndre Hunter out of Virginia, on players like Cam Reddish out of Duke. I think it's foolhardy. I think this draft, like the previous two drafts, will prove to be deep. That these players, some of the players that I've mentioned, and some of the other players that you're quite aware are going, in the top 2 and 3, will come in immediately and make noise. Whatever is going on, these players are coming into the NBA ready, and producing right away. And I look at this draft class, and that's exactly what I see happening from Zion, all the way, at least through the lottery, if not through the entire first round. Now, to the man of the hour, Mr. Williamson. We talked about Anthony Davis going to the Lakers. Okay, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about what is going back to the Crescent City. Okay, Mr. Brandon Ingram, who hails from the state of North Carolina, returning to the Southland. Lonzo Ball, we hope finally have a chance to run free like my boy De'Aaron Fox has done in Sacramento and for my fantasy team. That looks promising. Josh Hart can play. So that, the Anthony Davis deal, something I'm quite pleased with for both teams in terms of what it means for both organizations and the NBA community overall. You want to have parity. It's great to have your Goliaths, your blue chip organizations, if you will, your noteworthy franchises, the Lakers of the world, the Dallas Cowboys of the world, the Manchester Uniteds of the world, and the New York Yankees of the world. That's all good and well, okay? But you need those smaller market teams to be run effectively and to be competitive to have a successful league overall. Have to touch on the Women's World Cup. The American women playing very well. The round of 16 is going to start, I believe, this weekend. But a notable storyline from the Women's World Cup is in their first game against Thailand. Women's national team scored 13 goals, and Thailand scored a grand total of 0. I believe the shots on goal count for that game was 40 for the U.S. women and 2 for Thailand. And this kind of, people said, hey, has sportsmanship been put into question based on this result, and is running up the score something that's negative and should be looked at? At first, I was receptive, to that narrative to a certain extent. Now, again, once you, step onto the field of competition, it's your responsibility to compete. If your competitive will wanes, dissipates, disappears, you're on your own. And it's not the other team's responsibility to do your job for you, so to speak. And so, the way, that's has to be established first and foremost. Now, secondly, for me in looking at this, the World Cup is something that's once every 4 years. Okay, so if you are going, it's once every 4 years. It's not, like a league championship, the World Series, the NBA Finals, the Stanley Cup, the Super Bowl. This is every year. World Cup once every 4 years. It's like a Nobel Prize, once every 4 years. So if you can't muster, okay, the eye of the tiger, for that event, for that gathering, I don't know what to tell you. Don't send a team, don't participate, So That's, no. And then finally, in terms of, this question of sportsmanship in relation to, this overwhelming victory for the U.S. women, it's that point differential matters in pool play. Excuse me. Goal differential matters in pool play. A quick shout out to Drew Pops, who you might see, live at one of these World Cup games. As your boy is in Paris at this very moment. But because goal differential matters, then the United States team is completely within their rights to get every goal possible, because that's going to put them in better position, once you go into the elimination round. Okay, so the U.S. women playing lights out to start. We're all hopeful that this continues and they're able to capture the Women's World Cup. Folks, that's going to do it. Go ahead and comment, like, and subscribe as you feel the need. I am your host, the Cape Cod Kid, artist formerly known as Andre King. I want to thank you very much for tuning in to SandCity Sports, and we will see you here back again the next time.
Yes, we piece of souls do sedate ourselves. Just in the Mars pain we feel. Yes, at times we do hate ourselves, but each day we try to retake ourselves. So yes, we piece of souls do sedate ourselves. Just in the Mars pain we feel. Yes, at times we do hate ourselves, but each day we try to embrace ourselves. Yeah.